Hayes Brown is on the line with us. He's a blogger and writer over at the Center for American Progress's thinkprogress.org blog, specializes in national security issues. Hayes, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Great to have you with us. Is there a media double standard on racism? You were writing about, I believe you were writing about Huckabee's rant about Muslims as uncorked animals. And,
I was, in fact.
Pardon?
I said I was, in fact.
You were, in fact. Okay. And you can't draw an absolute parallel between people being Muslim and being people of color, although I think probably the vast majority of them are. Do you think that is, Mike Huckabee used to be a preacher, a Christian preacher. Where do we draw these lines, or where do you think Huckabee is, and what do you think is really going on here?
I think that a large part of the problem is that Americans, for the most part, don't know how to talk about religion. Even religious people like Huckabee, they don't know how to discuss it, is the thing. When someone says that, for example, the perpetrators of Benghazi, let's say, were likely Muslim, that is true, and that they were Muslim extremists is also true, and that is a factor to consider when analyzing the situation. But to do things like Huckabee does and did, and say that all Muslims, when they leave their Friday prayer, come out like, quote, uncorked animals, shows that you don't know how to discuss these things in a cogent manner, and that hurts all of us.
Well, it also shows that he's never been to a college football game. I mean, white people leave things in like uncorked animals. If you want to use that metaphor, I think it's a pretty ugly metaphor, but. And in fact, in this context, there is a subtext to that metaphor that resonates for the white supremacists among us, for the people who hang out in the hard right message boards. And I've been talking on the air for a couple of days about how one of my articles got picked up by one of these websites, and the way I knew it was in the middle of the day on Sunday. All of a sudden, I get like 5 or 6 emails calling me an N-word lover, which is their way of saying somebody who supports our president. And, a couple of death threats and, just all this kind of total ad hominem, et cetera, et cetera. And I was trying to figure out what the heck happened. And Louise says, oh, I'll bet you're on, and she went off to the website. And sure enough, they had picked up my article. And so anyhow, you want to riff on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it does help to give a lesser than quality to people who are different than you. It's hard to look at someone as a person and hate them, but if they're not a person, then it makes it much easier to do so. And that's the sort of thing that comes about when you use language, like uncorked animals, for example. It just makes it easier. I mean, and the internet, the anonymity of the internet helps you not really connect with the idea that someone is on the other end. And so that's a problem as well that you see when it comes to people spewing this sort of hatred, really.
Right. In other words, before a person a non-sociopathic person can easily hate people people who they don't know, they have to first objectify them. They have to turn them into something other than, in their own mind, something other than people. And then once they've done that, it's really easy for things to slip out like, oh, they're animals.
Right, and the real shame about this is that Huckabee had almost a point when he was talking about this. I mean, he made the observation that a lot of large-scale protests and demonstrations that can turn violent often happen on Fridays, the Muslim day of prayer. But what he doesn't seem to realize or acknowledge is the context of why that's the case. Because, I mean, their Friday is their Sunday, basically, so most people have the day off. They're all out of the house, outside on the streets in convenient places, the mosques. And so when they leave there, it's much easier to rally and organize people to do things like protest in favor of democracy or against military rule or against extremism, which is what we saw in Egypt during the last upheaval. And so for Huckabee to just take something like protest on Friday and then immediately go to, this must mean that Muslims are dangerous or they treat their days of prayer ill, that shows a lack of understanding and insight on his part.
Well, and I would add, I'm old enough to remember in the 1960s when this very same kind of language was used to describe people who were participating in civil rights marches and outspokenly in civil rights activity, coming out of the black churches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this. It just seems to me that this is that the underbelly of racism in this society has never gone away. It hasn't diminished. We haven't. Everybody says everything's all well now. Everything, not so much. I don't think. Your thoughts on that?
Right. I mean, the phrase has been tossed around that we live in a post-racial society, and that's
right.
Not entirely true. During his press conference today, when riffing on the fact that the immigration bill passed in the Senate wouldn't solve 100% of the problem, President Obama said that I don't know a single law that solves 100% of a problem. One of the examples he gave was that the Voting Rights Act helped lessen discrimination, but discrimination still exists, which is a really good, true observation to make. I mean, discrimination most definitely does still exist. There have been laws put into place to help it out. Society as a whole, I feel, is much better about dealing with issues of race, but there are still these pockets and these institutional situations where discrimination still exists and thrives even.
So what do we do about this?
That's a great question. I mean, the best thing we can do is raise our voices when we see these instances happen and don't let them just slide by, I suppose. I mean, if we all just turned a blind eye towards when someone refers to an entire group as uncolored animals or makes derogatory statements in general, then it's much easier for that sort of thing to propagate, to be seen as just, oh, it's a normal thing. But if we continue to speak out against it, that's, I think, the best way to really change the way things are looked at.
Yeah, speaking out. And your thoughts on the idea of reaching across, reaching out. We had this discussion really rather aggressively in the 60s and 70s that led to things like busing and led to things like the Voting Rights Act and led to things like civil rights acts and laws and it seemed for a while there that we were really making some progress and really changing things. And now we're seeing state after state that's putting into place voter suppression ID laws that largely target people of color. We're hearing this kind of rhetoric from people like Reverend Huckabee, who is on a national radio network. If a liberal were to say something like that, I mean, Ed Schultz called a woman a bad word once, and he was, 2 weeks he was off the air. I don't think that would happen on right-wing radio.
No, I think that you're right, but also because you have to look at who the clientele is. I mean, if no one in Huckabee's audience is complaining, then what reason would the radio stations have to pull him?
Right.
I mean, so you do need to do some of that outreach that you mentioned, but you also have to take into account that most of his base doesn't really see a problem with his comments, and most of the people that are convinced of the arguments for more voter ID laws and things of that nature, they fully believe that what they're doing is more about voting and not about race. Yeah,
I think, contrary to what our Supreme Court has recently said, that we really still need to be aggressively working in these areas legislatively. Hayes Brown, national security blogger and reporter over at thinkprogress.org. Thank you, Hayes.
Thank you.